Okay, so it's October 9th. Came out here this morning. Third time sitting for the shed buck. And we'll see what happens. Hopefully he comes by. Well, it's been a pretty slow morning. I've only seen 3 does. And that's it so far. Couple turkeys. So I don't know how much longer I'm going to stay out here. Hasn't really been nothing moving around. Okay, it's October 9th again. This is the evening hunt. I'm going out, sit on the garden patch, looking for the shed buck still. It's a little bit warm, so I'm not really expecting to see much, but you can't shoot a deer sitting at home on the couch, so I'm going out anyways. As I was expecting, I sat there in my stand and did not see a single deer until about a half hour before dark, when a doe came walking down the trail towards the food plot. She then turned and headed west to go out to the major food source. Not long after that, the shed buck made his way down the same trail and looked into the plot. After he had looked over the plot, he turned and saw the doe standing to the west of him. So then he decided to go follow the doe around out to the major food source. This all happened so quick that I barely had time to get my camera turned on to get this footage of him before he made it off towards the west with the doe, and I could no longer see him with the camera. I could still see him with my binoculars through the trees. I just could not get my camera on him. At this point, I knew I only had one option, because he was going the wrong direction and would not get close enough for me to get a shot at him if he kept going the direction that he was heading. So I reached over and grabbed out of my bag my grunt call. After grabbing the grunt call, I grunted towards the deer one time to try to get his attention, and he didn't seem to hear the first grunt, so I blew it again a second time, a little bit louder, and he looked right at me. I waited till he turned his head and wasn't looking at me anymore before blowing the grunt call a third time. And after hitting the grunt call the third time, that seemed to do the trick, and he was turned around and heading back around the plot my direction. As he made his way through the trees and back towards the trail that he first appeared on, I watched him pretty closely to make sure that he was, in fact, heading back around the plot in my direction. I then tried to get my camera on him so I could film him as he walked around the plot towards me. But at the time, little did I know, I had pushed the record button to stop the recording on my camera. And this whole time, as I'm standing here, I'm thinking that I'm actually filming the deer as he's very slowly making his way around the fence of the food plot. With every step that he took, he was getting closer and closer, but he was still about 80 yards away from me. So I reached over and grabbed my bow, so I was ready if he did give me the chance for a shot at him. I went back to my camera and tried to get footage of him. And like I said, I didn't have the record button pushed, so I really wasn't filming anything, but I did have him in the camera, and I was watching him on the camera while he was still making his way around the outside of the food plot. Now by this time, he was getting really close to the corner of the fence on the food plot, and my camera arm was starting to run out of reach. So, like I said before, I thought I was filming him with it, even though I really wasn't. So I didn't really know what I was going to do next, because I wanted to get the shot on film if I was able to take the shot. The only place that I had for an open shooting lane was directly behind my GoPro that is on me right now, filming this part of the hunt. So I didn't really know what to do. I really wanted to get the shot on film. So he was getting pretty close. He was probably 50 yards away now, still walking just incredibly slow. He was not in any hurry to go see where those grunts came from. So I kind of set my bow down on the side of my tree stand, and I reached over and turned my GoPro around onto the deer, so that way I could at least have some footage of him as he walked around the rest of the plot towards me. I was starting to get pretty nervous now as he was starting to angle a little bit away from me, and he was picking up speed. And then all of a sudden, he just stopped. But with my bad luck continuing, he stopped right behind an oak tree, and I couldn't see his vitals. All I could see was the back end of him, and he was only there for a second, and he turned and walked off. Now, if he would have stopped on either side of that oak tree, I would have been able to make a shot on him. He was right at 33 yards behind that oak tree. So, as kind of a last effort, I reached over and grabbed my grunt call out of my bag again in hopes that that would get him to turn back around. I used the grunt call 3 more times in an attempt to try to get him to come back around to the tree stand, but he must have had enough, and that was the last that I had seen him for that evening.
Okay, well, the shed bug showed up. He's at the far end of the food plot, and he turned and started walking away from where I'm at. So he went about 50 yards, and I got my grunt call out, and I called to him 2 or 3 different times, and he turned around, heard me, turned around, and came back. Well, I didn't have any other deer out in the plot, so he never came into the plot. He just went out around and circled the outside of it. So I had one spot kind of off behind me right here into the trees that I could get a shot at him, and he stopped right behind a big tree at 33 yards and then walked straight away after that off into the cornfield. So I'm not gonna lie, as hot as it was earlier, I was not expecting to even see him at all. I didn't see very many deer tonight, but that close. If it wasn't for that dang tree. I'll try her again another time, I guess.